911, state your emergency.
I just came in. There's blood everywhere.
Take a deep breath. Who am I speaking with?
There's blood on the floor.
Sir.
So throughout the movie, you're going to spend a lot of time with our main character, Nancy. We just found out she's pregnant. We just found out her mom has died not too long ago. And we just found out she's acting manager at her dad's diner. One night, she sends the rest of her staff home. She works the midnight shift alone. And that's when these people wearing masks are going to come torment her. You're in for a tale of survival. And when you're in that element of her working alone at this diner over the course of a night, it is pretty effective. And there's a paranoia to it, I have to say. Because if you've ever went to one of these diners and you've ever went there at night, you can't see out, but you can see in because of the way it's lit. So these people running around, banging on windows, hiding out of line of sight below the glass, I think it's effective enough and it's pretty creepy. I thought the first 30 or 40 minutes of this, really effective buildup, and I was pretty engaged with where we were going to go with this. The movie starts off and you have Nancy working the day shift when the rest of the people are in the restaurant, and these group of hooligans show up on mopeds. They bring a dead animal. He throws them away, threatens to call the police, and they say they'll be back that night. That's the setup. You're really wondering who they are, why they're doing this, what Nancy's going to do to survive. I think you have an effective little thriller on your hands. But sticking with Nancy, you spend the majority of the movie with this character, and staying on the topic of character, it has been quite some time since I have seen a main character this illogical, this stupid, this frustratingly stubborn. This character is just an absolute bitch, no two ways about it. This is a character that basically is insufferable to spend time with. She has no redemption arc from the start of this movie to the end. I do not understand why they wrote this character to be like this. It is a home invasion movie through and through. And the character we are supposed to fight with throughout the night, root for to survive, we do not care whatsoever because this character is insufferable. I would imagine the majority of the people who watch this probably want her dead by the end of this because there's just nothing redeemable about this character, and that's the one we spend the entire movie with. So as I said, setup is effective enough. Character design, on the other hand, absolute tragedy. I do not understand this. It's like filmmaking malpractice. But as I said, the setup for this is interesting enough. The first 30 or 40 minutes, then you get to the point where this movie does what a lot of modern movies do. Goes for an absolute 180 in tone. It goes for a giant twist. Starts rewriting what this movie's actually about. And from that point on, I thought it fell off a giant cliff. It was just wild. This movie's setup was effective. And then from that point on, there was just no tension whatsoever. The mystery was gone. I do not understand a lot of things about this movie, I guess, but this is one of those films where you're probably going to like one half of it way more than the other. If it somehow fully worked for you, I'm glad it did. This is a movie that was two entirely separate films. First half of this movie, I would give 8 out of 10. Second half of this movie, 2 out of 10. Because this is one of those movies that chooses to redo the entire first half of the film a second time during the second half of the film. And it's just from a different perspective. If there's a giant twist or something, something is revealed at about the halfway point and it's supposed to shock you. I didn't personally think it was even that effective. I thought it was predictable. But anyways, the whole second half of this film, when you get the major reveal of what's actually going on, just re-goes through the events from the first half from a different person's perspective. And I didn't find what they were going through to be interesting enough, intriguing enough. I didn't find it mysterious enough that we would revisit it a second time. So the entire second half of this film is just playing over of the first half from a different character's perspective, which makes no sense because there's no longer any tension. There's no longer any mystery to it. We know who's doing this. We know why they're doing this. It just turns this movie from a horror movie into like a true crime movie. But huge whiff, in my opinion, for such an effective setup to turn into this. During the second half, too, you spend a lot of time following a different character because they're kind of the lead of the narrative of what they're going through from that different perspective. And the character just has such a strange and unnatural character arc. I wouldn't say they seem good in the first half, but in the second half, when you're hanging out with this character, they feel like a completely different character written just so this movie could exist. And a lot of people are listening to this character. This character is doing absurd actions and nobody's really questioning what this guy's doing or why he's doing absurd things. Like people are dying and people are just willfully listening to him. Like nobody's questioning why this guy just lost his mind. It's a very strange tonal shift, as I said, that just does not work for me. This movie really suffers from the character dilemma. If you have a main character in Nancy who's just unlikable, then you have a second main character for the second half of this film when you change perspective, who's probably even more unlikable than her. So the entire movie, you're watching a pretty interesting setup into a terrible flounder towards the end with all unlikable characters, which by the end feels a little bit forgettable because you don't care about any of these people and they blunder the setup. I don't know. I just want to speak to the writer of this thing. I mean, there was such an effective start to it. And then the ending of this goes full cartoon. People are surviving like 15 mortal wounds and they're kind of teleporting around with no transportation. This movie just, as I said, falls off a cliff probably harder than any movie I've seen in the past couple of months. It was a shame to see, honestly. The ending of this movie on that 10 scale might be a 1 out of 10. I don't know. This is one of the most frustrating watches I've had this year because I really liked the first 20, 30 minutes of it. I thought the setup was really cool. I love home invasion films, and then this movie just turned into this weird, like straight-to-TV true crime thriller with a bunch of unlikable characters. Corny ending, the tone is just all over the place, not acted particularly well, you have no characters to root for. It would have a completely different rating if it finished what it was doing towards the beginning, but in the end, it's just background noise. I'm not going to remember this movie in 15 minutes. So if you guys have seen Last Straw, comment down below, let me know what you think, or let me know what your favorite home invasion film is. If you haven't already, join me down below, but I'll see you in the next review. Peace.